It's preparing the live stream. I'm
Yeah,
gonna.
it says here, meeting is being recorded and live streamed.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's not popping up yet on my. Yeah, there it goes. See.
Why is there a delay? Do you hear that weird delay?
Yeah, that was maybe through me, I think. And I've just turned it off. I'm trying to get the thing up though, on my other computer because I said that what we might do is take questions from the comment thread on YouTube, um, and it's not coming up right now for some reason. Let me refresh the page. Maybe that will help. I don't know. Um, I don't get it. That's weird because it should be coming up. Well, I don't know. At least it's live streaming, and I'll see if I can't figure out a way to look at the. But anyway, so we're going to go ad free, Lucretia. So just tell people welcome to the special holiday ad free edition. You know, lots of energy. You know what to do. And we'll just follow you.
To like 45 minutes, you think?
That sounds fine. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
See how it goes. Okay. All right. Then in 3, 2. Welcome, everybody, to this very special Merry Christmas edition of the Three Whiskey Happy Hour. I am joined, as always, by my favorite and only co-hosts, Steve Hayward and John Yu. How are you this evening, gentlemen?
Well, I'm good, but who are you? I mean, you can introduce yourself.
Nobody cares.
Nobody can. You don't need an introduction. That's true. Good point.
Hi, John.
Hi, Lucretia. Can everyone see Steve's stupid Santa hat?
Well, it's Christmas, John. Why are you being such a Grinch?
You are looking a little grinchy tonight, and I don't blame you because I have some bad news for you. I came prepared through Whiskey Happy Hour with a bottle of Booker's, of which this is the.
Oh wow!
I can't see the number on it. The 73rd one off the production line, of which only 102 were made. Booker's is made by Jim Beam Distilleries, which has been around since I believe it was 1796, if I'm not mistaken. However, Jim Beam is pausing production for a year.
I heard that.
A full year because all of these sort of goody two shoes Gen Zers would rather sit home and scroll the internet with TikTok videos and Instagram videos. And they don't want to drink alcohol. They don't want to go anywhere. They don't want to do anything. And in the article I sent these two guys, the funniest thing about it was the author made the comment that, look, these people have free delivery to your home and Uber. Imagine how much drinking we could have done if we had somebody to Uber us home every single time we had a little bit too much to drink. Of course, you're a little bit younger, John, but Steve and I remember the days when we really didn't worry about it that
much. And we probably should have.
Exactly.
Well,
what I mean is that the enforcement of DUI laws was nowhere near as stringent as it is today. So
yes, I've heard of these wonderful times when one could drive without a seatbelt and would smoke your cigarettes in the car while driving and drinking simultaneously and throwing litter out the window as you went down the highway.
Right.
Yes, I hate to admit I probably did all of those things at one time or another.
I'm sure.
Yes. Although I probably didn't often drive when I was really, really drunk because why? I didn't. So we would have designated drivers, which was always the bummer to be the designated driver. You know, now you just call an Uber.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
that's
both
right.
My kids, when they were in college, I would tell them, they had an Uber account. Don't you dare drive home. Here's the Uber account. You just call them. And so I never had any issues with my kids getting DUIs or anything like that. But they're older now and they know better. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, I will, since we're, I'm having Kilkerran again, this wonderful stuff I got at.
Is that the end of the second bottle?
No, it's the end of the first bottle. I poached from the second bottle to bring this down to my office. See, and let me mention that I have got the YouTube live stream up going on my other computer, and I can see a chat window. We've got 8 people watching live, And if you guys have a good question or something that you want us to address and it fits, go ahead and put it in the chat window, and I'll try and bring it up as we go.
Well, so I don't know if I actually made the point clear. Jim Beam is shutting down production for a full year because they have a glut of alcohol.
Yeah. Wow.
Not just in their less expensive that I'd never drink Jim Beam sort of regular stuff, but their bakers, their bookers. What's the other one? Basil Hayden. I forget which of the higher end whiskeys come under Jim Beam, but they're shutting down. They're shutting down production of whiskey for a year. The largest whiskey maker in America. Well,
the solution to this is obvious. We need to bring back prohibition. That will right, that will send consumption up, right? That my favorite Will Rogers line of all time was his quip that, well, at least prohibition is better than no liquor at all, which I always thought was, I mean, he said a lot of great ones, but that's my favorite.
Well, I was just in Costco for Christmas Eve. I didn't realize correlate that, but yeah, there were huge hard liquor sales going on at Costco, like 20-30% off. Yeah. So I'm planning to go back the day after Christmas and fill her up.
I was gonna say, did you stock up or not yet, huh?
Not yet, because there's got to be discounts after Christmas.
Yeah, but I can't imagine being in Costco on New Year's Eve. I am not big on crowds. I haven't left the house all day today. I'm afraid of. I'm xenophobic. I'll just leave it at that. Or no, agoraphobic.
Agoraphobic.
Right.
Well,
agoraphobic.
Yeah, but xenophobia, that could be your special bonus. So.
Yeah, there's.
Sorry.
All right. Enough of that. We want to talk a little bit today about Christmas in America and what's kind of been happening lately. So I posed to these guys that something very interesting is happening. And I saw this just before I came on the podcast, didn't get to internalize it fully, but even President Donald Trump, who seems to be following in the footsteps of Thomas Jefferson and Abraham Lincoln when it comes to his religion. Does that make sense to you guys? That he's very much pro-Christianity, very much not sectarian or claiming to belong to any church. Anyway, he's coming out and saying that Christianity is making a revival in America. I want to give you guys two examples, and then I want to ask John a question. The Sarah Huckabee, whom everyone has known is a Christian and is not shy about her faith, but when she was asked to, when she had to justify, I believe it was giving the day off after Christmas, something like that, she, instead of doing it in terms of religious freedom or the culture of Christmas, she came out and said, this is the day that our Savior was born. God became man on earth, and this is why I am giving this day off. And if you don't like it, I will pray for you. And I think that we've seen a lot of that sort of thing since Charlie Kirk. So I was listening to my only favorite, actually, outnumbered co-host John Yoo, about to answer a question. Yeah,
victim.
You're their favorite.
Or victim. Yeah. No, on this podcast, I'm the victim. On that show, I'm a guest.
Yeah, they love you, John. It's obvious, and they think you're so smart. And they say things, and then they go back and apologize for saying them because they know you're going to be smarter than they are. It's very funny, but I didn't get to hear your answer when they were asking, what is the First Amendment issue when a city wants to have on, I guess, a public parking lot, a nativity scene? Is there a separation of church and state problem? You might want to give the details on that, John.
Yeah. So, So first, I've not been elevated to a host because I think only women can be the host. This is like a Lucretia dream show.
Well, John, that's not an obstacle anymore. You just switch teams. Sorry, okay.
And there's a guest, the man who's in the middle, but they don't gang up on him the way Lucretia gangs up on the two of us. So, this is a takeoff on a John F. Kennedy joke. So, Kennedy once said that he had a reception for all the Nobel laureates.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, this is the smartest assemblage of people in the White House since Thomas Jefferson ate alone.
Yeah.
And
right.
I would say, 4 Fox host women is the greatest collection of feminine talent since Lucretia did a solo podcast. But, so, on the show, they asked about this example. This mayor demanded that a nativity scene be removed from a public space, publicly owned parking lot, and then said because the Constitution requires a separation of church and state. So I said, this mayor should go back to school because he will discover that the separation of church and state is not a phrase that appears in the Constitution, that the First Amendment only forbids the government from establishing a religion, not promoting religions, plural, and that the Supreme Court had decided this issue several times. And it said, if the government wants to open up a public space for religious displays at the holiday season, it can. It just can't say only Presbyterians or maybe even only Christians. So you've had displays which the court has upheld, which would have a Christmas scene and a nativity, as a nativity scene, and then a Jewish menorah, for example, would be okay. I don't know if the government has to allow every possible religion because it has to have space concerns. And, what if someone just makes up their own religion and wants to put like some, I don't know, Wiccan, whatever those people are, some kind of Wiccan display. I don't even know what that would be. Would that be like the cauldron from Macbeth with the three witches? I don't know what Wiccan would do. But my point is that the Supreme Court has, I think, undone the mistakes of the Warren Court, which was to try to actually separate church and state and to allow the government to promote and support religious belief generally, so long as they don't pick out and single a specific religion to support and to suppress all the others.
You might remember, Steve, I'll let you comment on this. Last year, around this time, we discussed the fact that the Iowa Capitol building, as I recall, of all places, good Christian girl from Iowa that I am, actually allowed a satanic display at Christmas time. They removed Thomas Jefferson to put up a satanic display. So what do you think, Steve? Does that mean that the government is being neutral to all religions?
I'd have to think about the satanic display business. I'd forgotten about that until you reminded me just now. I think I could construct a case for a government to say no, but it might take me a while. I do think that the interesting thing here is, for a while, the Supreme Court was badly confused or worse on these issues. And I'm thinking 30, 40 years ago, the Lemon Test, which I've forgotten what it is, but I think it's gone now. But the point is that in the last 10, 15 years, the Supreme Court has become something of a leading indicator. I mean, you've actually had some 9-0 decisions on the side of religious liberty, as we would understand it, right? What is that? The Alliance Defending Freedom people who cause riots when they show up at law schools has won, I think, 15 Supreme Court cases. So, and I say a leading indicator because, as you hinted at, is we're seeing this return to church in America. We'll talk about the Charlie Kirk Memorial Service in a moment because I think that was quite significant. But there's the Supreme Court kind of leading the way. I'll just say on the substance of it. I mean, I think there still are some incoherencies. Is that a proper plural word? So, we had the Exodus 20 years ago or more now. We had the 10 Commandments case. And here was a case that they consolidated a case with, was it Alabama and Texas? Because Texas has the 10 Commandments on the Capitol grounds, along with other stuff. And then Judge Moore in Alabama wanted a big 10 Commandments inside the courthouse. And essentially what the court said was, no, you can't have the big 10 Commandments in Alabama because they're too big. But you can have it on the grounds of the state capitol because it's not too big. I mean, that's, John, you can correct me if I'm too grotesquely distorting what they said, but I thought that was an incoherent ruling because the implicit rationale was, well, you don't take it as seriously if it's not so big, but if you really put it out front and center, that means you really mean it. And we can't have displays of religion that really mean it. Or go back even further to the 70s, you had the pair of cases, I forget which ones they were, but it was the one that said that the local school district could not give away or loan textbooks they weren't using anymore to the local Catholic parochial schools. But then in a separate case, nearly at the same time, they said the public schools could give maps to parochial schools for their buses that picked up students. And that's what prompted Pat Moynihan to say, how would the Supreme Court handle an atlas? A book of maps. And I understand the reasoning of why maps made sense. That wasn't actually religion. It was simply a police power thing. But still, there's still, at the end of the day, this tortured reasoning we've had towards religion in the public square for decades, I think is trending the other way slowly. I kind of like it. Can I just add one quick joke, though, John? You mentioned the Kennedy line about the greatest assembly of minds since Jefferson dined alone. There's a Reagan era version of that, which somebody said, it wasn't Reagan, sadly. Someone said, this is the greatest assembly of brains in the White House since Richard Darman dined alone, which he did often. People, oh, no, we hated Richard Darman. He was horrible. He was a terrible person. I was Marty Anderson who said to me once, why do people take an instant dislike to Richard Darman? Saves time. Anyway,
yeah. I heard Bob Dole say that as a joke about Ted Cruz, which was
right. Yeah, not fair, but I get it. Yes, right.
Yeah, the one addendum I'd make on Steve's description of the cases is that I think there's been a radical change by the Roberts Court in religion because of the Warren Court decisions. A lot of like two-bit local officials, like this guy we're talking about in South Carolina, believed that the government had a compelling purpose to exclude religion from public life. And so they would allow, satanic worshipers and cannibals, whoever you want to mention, fly a flag in front of the Boston City Hall or, have a demonstration of some kind. But they would say we are required to stop religious groups. And so the one thing that religious groups did that was very clever in terms of litigation was to say, if you interfere with us participating on an equal footing with other groups, you've not only deprived us of the free exercise of religion, even though the government's saying, oh, we can't do that because otherwise we'd be violating the Establishment Clause. But they've also said, and this was, I think, part of what helped them start winning even under the Rehnquist court, was to say, you could think of religions as being free speech organizations like the ACLU or, the Republican Party. And so if you exclude religious groups, you're actually violating their free speech rights and their right of belief to pursue this idea that religion has to be extinguished from the public sphere. And I think that's what that was the change in the arguments that started to allow religious groups really to pile on the wins. And then, under the Roberts Court, it's been almost a unbroken winning streak. But
it's also
groups.
been much more, how should I say, true to the original intent of the First Amendment under the Roberts Court than it was under the Rehnquist Court. Because you're right.
I think so.
I mean, and you can't blame those litigants for going to the court and asking for some relief based upon any way they thought they might get it. But of course, the Establishment Clause doesn't mean you can't have a manger scene. You can't allow a moment of silent prayer in schools. It doesn't mean that school-aged children can never be exposed to something that they might somehow feel uncomfortable about. That had to be the dumbest decision ever by the Supreme Court, and there's been a lot of them. And so, the Roberts Court, you're right, they took it further, but they did it on in my opinion, much more solid ground, ways that made a lot more sense. Not that there's anything wrong with saying that you have a First Amendment freedom of speech right to practice your religion, but you also have a dually protected, first and foremost in the First Amendment, right not to have a religion forced upon you, a specific established government-sponsored religion forced upon you, but that you have the freedom to practice your religion without government interference. That's the most amazing thing in many ways that's happened in the history of civilization, and why America became the free place that it was. Sorry, I'm pontificating here. I don't mean to,
that's okay.
That.
Well, I could do that too. I mean, I think about, I always like to point out to students that, Britain embraced toleration with the Toleration Act that's part of the 1688 revolution. But just think about the title of the act and the actual language of it is, we will tolerate you. We will no longer throw you in jail for not being an Anglican. There were still religious tests for office, by the way, that lasted well into the 19th century. They just decriminalized being a nonconformist. Gee, well, that's what, and it was, Washington's famous letter to the Hebrew congregation at Newport when he was president, saying it's now no more that toleration is spoken as though it were by the indulgence of one group that another group gets to enjoy their natural rights of conscience. That was brand new, right? I mean, it was huge. That, and along with John, you probably single this out too as students. Our Constitution saying no religious tests for public office. First Constitution anywhere that ever said that in the world, I think, right? As I say, it was not true in Britain until the 20th century, for goodness sake. Now, we often talk about the theological political problem and the political philosophy and the rest of that. I do have one of our viewers on YouTube asks about something. I've heard this, I forgot about it, but what's the Blaine Amendment and how is that implicated in all this? I have forgotten, I have to say.
Oh, the Blaine Amendment was this effort to, this was an effort to try to change the Constitution that failed. Blaine, if I remember correctly, was a losing presidential candidate for the Democratic Party in the late 19th century. So I believe after he lost, there were a number of these Blaine amendments that were added to state constitutions, right, which in practical effect, I don't think they were all worded the exact same way, but in practical effect forbade money going to not just churches, but religious schools. I think it's interesting. The Supreme Court in these last few cases has essentially held these amendments to be unconstitutional, even if they haven't directly said so. So you remember there are several examples where the court, where states and cities have tried to exclude religious groups from participating in grant programs, for example, that are open to everybody else. So the one well-known one is, I think this involved the Lutheran Church. Nonprofits could go to the state and say, ask for a grant to, I think in this case, repave the parking lot. And the government said, everybody but religious groups and churches can participate in this grant program. And they would say, because the Blaine Amendment in our state constitution requires us to forbid any money going to any religious organization. And the Supreme Court struck that down for the reasons we gave earlier, that the government singling out religious groups for disfavored treatment violates the free exercise clause. So those Blaine amendments, I don't think that court has said they're all unconstitutional, but effectively you can see the writing on the wall.
And they've gone further. I was just going to say really quickly, sorry, Steve, that not only have they done things like parking lots, but in my state, now I know that they don't have a Blaine Amendment state equivalent, but in my state, I can and do give $2,500 for a married couple directly to a Catholic school in my community, and it is not a write-off. It is a tax exemption. It comes off of my state taxes. But what I would say is, in many places, the Blaine amendments are not necessarily overturned, but there have been rulings that say, yes, if you are giving a voucher program, for instance, to parents, they have to be able to use those vouchers at the school of their choice, which could include and does include Catholic schools and other parochial schools. Sorry, Steve.
That's all right. Well, I just want to correct a rare factual error from John Yoo, which is James Blaine was a Republican, not a Democrat.
Oh. In fact, was he the one who lost to Grover Cleveland?
He lost to Grover Cleveland. And by the way, I
backwards.
This part I remember. It was during that campaign of what is it, 1888, I guess, or 18, whatever. You'd have this Democratic campaign crowds would march through the streets, with candles and dressed darkly, all solemn. They'd say, James Blaine, James G. Blaine, the continental liar from the state of Maine. That was the great politics of the old day. But I just mentioned as a cultural thing, you guys may not have seen it, but Netflix has a 3-part series out right now called Death by Lightning about James Garfield and his assassination.
I've been watching it. I'm halfway through.
It is
good.
It is terrific, I think. I can't believe how good it is. And it's now making people realize Garfield was a pretty good guy. We didn't know that because he was killed so early, right? But the person who plays Blaine, I forget the actor, but he does a very good job. And Blaine comes across. Some of the characterizations, like Roscoe Conkling, are probably a little overdone, but it's drama. But they make Blaine into a very sympathetic figure, I have to say. Everyone should see it. It's really, really good.
But you see, the other thing I like about the show is that it, I think what's fair based on what my reading of the histories of the time was how important the Civil War still was 25, 30 years later, where people who had been generals and officers in the Union Army are all being elected, right? All the presidents served in the Union side of the war. And this is really important. With Grover Cleveland, is he the first Democrat that wins after the Civil War? So you have an unbroken, Republican victories. In the TV show, they're still shouting about Lincoln, right? And Grant made a comeback, try for a third term, in that Garfield, that year that Garfield was nominated, and they were still talking about the hero of Appomattox. I mean, we've lost touch with that. I think how important that Civil War was for like 30 years after the Civil War.
Well, guys, I would be watching it tonight after this podcast and before I go off to midnight mass, except that I haven't yet had my annual dosage of Die Hard, so that's what I'll be watching. I'll watch Garfield tomorrow.
Do you actually watch it every holiday season?
Oh God, it's like the Peanuts special. You watch two things. You watch the Peanuts, right? Of course.
And the How the Grinch Stole Christmas and Scrooged. That great movie with Bill Murray.
Oh, you don't watch Elf? What about Elf?
Oh, I've never seen that. I can't stand Will Ferrell.
Oh, really? Oh, no, it's uneven, but he's we'll say that for some other time. But
I would have thought Steve thinks he's living in the National Lampoon Christmas Vacation movie. How can he not be watching that?
Okay, right. Well, because I can't stand Chevy Chase. That's one reason why. He's a real jerk. Never mind. Okay.
All right, back to what Steve brought up, which is I think he probably didn't mean to, but pointing out that John had a factual error, and he's right. John almost never gets the facts wrong. He sometimes gets the facts that I say and twists them for his own purposes, but when they're his facts, he never gets them wrong. But an interesting commentary today out of the Liberal Patriot. Rui Teixeira and his group that is desperately trying to save the Democratic Party. I think that's probably their biggest endeavor going on right now. Wouldn't you agree that what can we do to make sure the Democratic Party doesn't completely implode? By the way, they are $16 million in debt as of the month of November. They brought in way less money than they spent, and they're still paying off Kamala's debt. And anyway, and part of the reason. Go ahead, please, Steve.
And most of that deficit is the loss of Jewish donors. I've actually seen the numbers now. Yeah, wow. It's the shift of the decline of Jewish donations. Democrats and Democratic Party is huge. And about half of it has gone over to the Republican Party. I've got the numbers and all this. I don't have them in front of me, and I won't do it anyway. But there you go.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's quite all right. That's an interesting factoid. Thank you, Steve. But what I want to talk about is an article that came out today in the Liberal Patriot talking about the fact that there has been a huge growing disparity between Republicans and Democrats on the question of religiosity, would we call it, on the question of who, and they have a 4-part test that they go by to determine who is and who is not religious, and where they are religious. This bothers me a little bit because they break it down by Black Protestant, Hispanic Protestant, white Catholic, Hispanic Catholic. I'm not sure those things matter. They don't at my church, that's for sure. But they break it down all Christian versus all non-Christian. If you look at the numbers, and maybe Steve can post this if anybody's interested, back in 2008, 86% of Republicans were Christian. That number is 81% today. Okay, all categories of Christian. For Democrats in 2008, it was 74% claimed to be Christian of some kind. Today it is 54% total. And that includes just about any kind of thing you could possibly put under the category of Christian, any nutty, sorry, I don't mean to be rude about it. Is this a problem? And the article sets it out as these are people, these Democrats are the college educated elite that live in the coasts like you two. They're not the good solid Americans who live in the hinterlands like me. And they vote for things like more immigration. They vote for things like more protection for trans and LGBTQ. They make the comment in the article that most people in the flyover states don't even know what the LGBTQ plus letters stand for.
Right.
Right. So anyway, what do you guys think about? And the point of the article is this is going to be a real problem going forward because the numbers just don't match up. You can't win elections by just certainly not national elections by just concentrating on the coast, the elites, and so forth. Go ahead, Steve. You look.
Well, oh God, yeah, I've got both barrels of my 20 gauge shotgun loaded for this one, right? The author of this, John Halpin, and he's, his policy instincts are progressive. His political instincts are much better. I had lunch with him, 15 years ago, along with Rui Teixeira. He's his partner in the Liberal Patriot, right? Mm-hmm. Important I say Liberal Patriot, because by the way, the decline in religious belief amongst Democrats tracks with the decline in patriotism among Democrats. Mm-hmm. They've done separate pieces. I think Rui's done a separate piece of saying Democrats are also less patriotic. I think those things go together for a reason. I don't think they're randomly correlated here at all, right? And put it this way, I wrote that long piece for the New York Post about Franklin Roosevelt and revisionism, a week ago. And I did go back to thinking about Roosevelt Roosevelt, who, by the way, he was a high church Episcopalian, sort of like John. Maybe not John. Okay.
Another way Lucretia thinks we're the same now.
Well, okay. I remember Andrew Klavan, who, converted from Judaism to Christianity. And someone said, "What, are you Episcopalian?" He says, No, I'm a real Christian. I ran that by Rob Long the other day. And he said, "Yeah, I totally get that."
Steve, before you go any further, let me just, I don't want to interrupt, but I just want to say that 54% includes all of those Episcopalians that wear the rainbow flags and all the Methodists who marry polyamorous couples, or they're not thruples. That's what they're called these days, thruples. You know what a thruple is, John?
Thruples?
You don't want to know.
Is it like a highway or something?
54% of Democrats encompass all of those,
that would be a very interesting subject for a survey of what those 54. I'll bet that would be a huge gulf there, right? What's the old joke about Unitarians is they believe that there is at most one God. And, when a Unitarian wants to run you out of town, they burn a question mark on your lawn. I got all those jokes, right? I can do those next to the Episcopal jokes. But look, here's the point is, Roosevelt, whatever you may say about him, and for that matter, about John F. Kennedy or even Bill Clinton, massive hypocrite. But somewhere deep down inside, I think, he does have the residue of being raised a Southern Baptist in Arkansas. And I think that connects to why he was a popular politician. I'll leave that for some other day to talk about. But you think about Roosevelt. So what did Roosevelt do? On D-Day, he led the nation in prayer, a Christian prayer for the troops in the field. Before D-Day, he actually throughout the war, he wrote a preface to a little pocket Bible. Actually, it was a New Testament, even worse if you're not Christian, right? And he said, I recommend, actually, let me get the quote, because I do have it handy. He says, as commander-in-chief, constitutional phrase, right? I take pleasure in commending the reading of the Bible to all who served in the armed forces of the United States. If Trump said that today, Democrats would be calling for his impeachment, right? That's how far we have changed. And really, it's not how far the country has changed. It's how far one party has changed. I think there's deep reasons for that. I wrote about this some months ago on our Substack that, 60 years ago, the new thing on the sort of secular left was God is dead. And then Time magazine put that on their cover. It was a famous cover. Then in 1989, they put on the cover, is government dead? And I read the article and said, this is the same article as there is God dead, because government is the secular substitute for religion for a lot of people on the left. And that, I think, explains why they're so angry about things these days. Now, that's a thumbnail for a much longer analysis that I probably could turn into a book, but I'll stop there because I'm going on too long.
Well, I'd be curious how many of these things correlate together. So, Steve, Lucretia says there's been a decline in religious belief in Democrats. Steve says, there's other things that have declined in amongst Democrats, maybe marriage, family formation, but also maybe like increases in income, thruples or whatever these new Christmas ornaments are talking about are. They have more of those. I don't know, but I wonder if like drug use, number of Teslas. I mean, you could go on and on. Like how it would be very interesting to see like what the high correlation of different characteristics are with the progressives or Democrats nowadays. And I bet religion is not just the only, right? Patriotism, as Steve said. Military service, I'm sure, is in decline too. But yet, I probably correlates also with higher education levels, higher income, more urbanization. I don't know, but I bet that has a lot to. I bet this is just one of many things that are going on amongst Democrats that
John,
are not healthy for them.
This is an interesting one. I'm interested to hear what you think. Highly religious Americans, highly religious. So that's not the Methodist butch woman with the rainbow garments and, the whole thing, marrying off thruples. That's the highly religious people like me who go to church more than once a week, say they pray every day, all of those kinds of things. Highly religious Americans are less likely to say the government should give more help to people in need. Think that one through. Why? Because Christians, real Christians, believe
it's their
that
job.
It is not government.
Yeah, right.
It is your responsibility as an individual to help the guy that's the Samaritan that you pass by on the street. It is not to tax your fellow citizens to have money sent in part to help the poor, and then the rest of it go to NGOs and funnel back to leftists. Sorry, that was an editorial side comment, but anyway, I think that's very interesting. And of course, Democrats. My favorite anecdote about that, and I'll be quiet, is the anecdote about Al Gore and Tipper when he was still married to Tipper. And their children are sitting outside at this lovely little coffee shop in Washington, D.C., and a homeless guy comes by, and one of the kids says, "Let's take him home. He needs a bath, he needs a hot meal, and Al Gore's response is, no, much better that we give some money to the government and let the government take care of it."
Yeah.
Right? So that's going to have implications long term, I think, as well.
Well, you've heard the I forget who made this joke. I think it way predates the Babylon Bee, but it's it's two liberals walk along and they see the person who's been assaulted, and like the Good Samaritan does, right? They see the person who's been beaten up by a criminal in the ditch, and they look at each other and they say, "We must find the person who did this and help him." That's modern liberalism, right? There's data on this, by the way. I know it is, but it's true. There's data on this. This is Arthur Brooks' early work that was really good, which was who gives in America, who's the most charitable. Turns out it's not rich conservatives or rich Christians. It's average working class Christians who they tithe their churches, that give money to the food banks, and they're not people who itemize. They're not taking a tax benefit for this because they don't itemize. They do it because that's what they think they ought to do, as you were saying a moment ago. Whereas, what does Hillary Clinton do on their
underwear?
Their underwear. That's underwear. We're gonna take $1.50 deduction for Bill's used underwear. It's like,
okay, all right. I have to do this because it'll come back. We're almost done, and it will come back on the Babylon Bee. But I'm gonna give a little bit of leeway to, or how should I? That's not the right way to put it. You'll get it. Bill Clinton. I'm going to speak a little bit on behalf of Bill Clinton for a moment. So with the release of the Epstein files, the more of the Epstein files. Bill Clinton, of course, has figured prominently in them. And one of them that kept showing up over and over again, at least on the things that I see and read, was Bill Clinton shirtless in a hot tub. I'm sorry. I don't like Bill Clinton. I think he's a scum, but I don't know anybody ever in the history of hot tubs who's a guy who's gone in with a shirt on into a hot tub. If you're in a hot tub, you don't have a shirt on. But it goes back to what we talked about last time, which was framing a narrative in just the way that you present the facts. Yeah, he was shirtless in a hot tub. He did a lot of other bad things. I'm not giving him any grace on those other things. But the idea that he's somehow this terrible pedophile because he was shirtless in a hot tub just doesn't ring true. Sorry. Do you guys have any comments about the Epstein files?
No, I'm bored at this point.
Bored. I was bored 6 months ago.
Yeah. But your point. I mean, I know we want to move to an end. But the flip side. So you talk about religion and John Halpin and our smart progressive friends like Rui and John. Then you have the same time here in the last couple of days, the Politico saying the far right is exploiting Christmas. I mean, this is like satire. Well, what happens is, first of all, I mean, that's just the Politico story skips over the facts, which is Christmas markets in Europe have been, in some cases, canceled. In other cases, they've had to put up bollards to stop, people driving through. There's a number of examples now of what looks like groups of aggressive Muslims deliberately trying to do some of their prayer observances on the grounds of Christian churches. What's that about? There's no need to do that. That's not okay. But you're seeing Maloney in Italy and others saying, we're for Christmas. Boy, what a bold, controversial thing to do. We're for Christmas, right? The other one is there's a good story the other day in USA Today. I say good story. I mean, the fact that they reported it all. It's like conservatives are having kids and getting married and liberals aren't. And this is a real problem for liberals because, you play out how that works, right? We're going to outnumber liberals someday. I'm told, by the way, and I know some of the people who've done this, people who've had 5 or 6 kids and they go to Europe for vacation and everybody stares at them. They can't, what? They can't believe that these American families have 5, 6 kids. It's just because almost nobody does, except now, of course, the number of faithful people in Europe is much smaller than America. That's part of the problem over there. But guess what? The people who have high birth rates, it's the seriously religious and faithful people in Europe are still having kids because they actually have a reason to believe in the future, no matter how incompetent their governments are. So,
John, do you have any comment?
He's still trying to figure out what a thruple is.
Or on all that other stuff Steve said.
Thruple. Haven't you looked up thruples yet, John? No, you don't want to.
No, my computer is preventing me from accessing these websites recommended by Steve Hayward.
You probably don't want to read that. I'll say,
by the way, can I just say real quick, since we have a lot of good questions in the chat thread, but some of them I want to hold till I think we're going to do another episode Friday or Saturday. We'll figure it out where we will Friday, and we're going to do sort of year-end wrap up and a few things. And so, one faithful reader and listener wants to know, Lucretia, why you don't like Akhil Lamar, and that will take more than 30 seconds. So let's save that and a few others. So anyway, sorry, I'll just talk to listeners or viewers.
Okay. We'll do what we can about that.
We may do. We're gonna do a conference with him next fall. So there.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
I do want to say, and I don't dislike him at all. I don't know him, so I
disagree with him. Disagree with him is
yes. And by the way, my good friend John and I have some agreement on the disagreement with him, but I'll leave that aside too.
Yeah.
I want to say that even small things like, okay, I don't know if you knew this, but for the first time since the start of the Gaza war, they actually had Christian celebrations in Bethlehem for Christmas Eve. So that's a wonderful thing. But also, just look at the Trump administration. I mean, Trump has done some great things. Melania's Christmas decoration of the White House compared to that monstrosity clown show that Jill Biden put on last year. We've never discussed that. It came out, this isn't new news, but it just it points to an understanding of the importance of faith, the importance of one of the most holy days for Christians in America, and I see between the Charlie Kirk thing, which you said we'd come back to, we didn't. We don't have time today, but I'm just seeing more and more everywhere people willing to talk about their faith, people not being embarrassed about it anymore in a way that they probably were even 10 years ago. And I think that's a wonderful thing because, as Steve pointed out in his article, juxtaposing the two different timepieces, his Substack article, when you don't have anything to believe in, it explains the crisis of our time. It explains the crisis of our young people. It explains the crisis of people who really they don't have children because they don't believe there's a future. Those of us who believe there's a future have hope. And so anyway, I'm not going to pontificate. I'm going to move to the Babylon Bee and give you guys, while I'm pulling it up, one last word. John?
No. Go ahead.
He doesn't have a last word. Okay.
No, I don't need, what's the last, there was no question.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll just give you a look at the sunset out my window right now from my home office.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you in the middle of the storms, Steve?
We're oh yeah. My power was out last night for several hours and it came back. So that surprised me. I thought I'd be out for 2 days, but PG&E is actually trying to do a good job these days, which kind of amazes me. Anyway, it's
didn't a quarter of San Francisco lost that electricity, right?
Yeah.
Most of downtown.
And the Waymos just had to stop in the middle of the street because without street lights, they can't operate. You were safe from that, right, John?
Yeah, no, I'm not in San Francisco. So
and you weren't in San Francisco at the time.
No, and I wasn't in San Francisco when the power outage happened, but I was a few years ago when the power went out for 2 weeks because of the wildfires.
Oh, right.
That was exciting.
Yeah. Right.
I was once in without power for 3.5 weeks in upstate New York. That was an adventure. I'll leave it at that. But now, first of all, to both of you, I wish you both a very, very Merry Christmas. It is, when we're recording this, is actually Christmas Eve. So I hope your Christmas Eve and your Christmas Day is wonderful. And that the same to all of our listeners. We'll be back with you on Friday. And so in the meantime, a few real quick Babylon Bees. Texas issues annual reminder not to shoot Santa.
Yes, of course.
Right.
I can never be sure who's under that costume.
This one hits way too close to home, guys, because I will tell you that the thing I confess most often at confession are the really bad words I scream at people when I'm driving. All right. Just okay, because anyway.
That I'd like to hear. Actually, I was in a car with you. You don't scream all kinds of bad.
I was on my best behavior, John.
I mean, what worries me is when you start taking the guns out of that center console while you're driving.
No, but I will tell you.
I'd much rather have the cursing.
I was driving down a highway the other day, and the speed limit's 55, but it's one of those highways that has lights and the cars that can come off side roads. And I had the green light on the highway, so it was 55. I was probably only going to maybe 62, and I see this car getting ready to turn onto the highway at a red light, sitting there. And it sits there, and it sits there, and it sits there. And then right when I get to the intersection, it turns in front of me. And I have to slam on my brakes. Somebody's on the other side of me. I slam on my brakes. Good brakes, thank God. And so then I start honking, and then I pull around and I honk, and I say some not very nice things. But then the guy rolls down his window, gets up next to me on the other side, and rolls down his window and says, "My dad's 83. And I said, then he shouldn't be driving. And he says, I know that, but I can't stop him. It was just crazy. But that kind of thing happens to me all the time. Okay, back to the Babylon Beast. Uh-oh, car you honked and swore at for driving too slow just turned into your church parking lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
that happened to me once.
I hate to tell you, it happens to me all the time. Can't leave it with this, but let me get these out of the way. New photos reveal Epstein had a sick fetish for girls with giant black squares for heads.
Oh, that's good. That's funny.
Good.
That is funny.
Right, this one, click here, since I don't want anybody to think that I was actually speaking on behalf of Bill Clinton. Click here to see all the Epstein photos so far that don't include Bill Clinton. By the way, guys, Nicki Minaj.
Yeah, I don't know.
Cool. But okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll end with this one because you guys will appreciate this. And by the way, Lucretia would never do something like this to Mr. Lucretia. Disappointing. Thompson submachine gun shaped box turns out to be socks.
Oh, that is good.
Yeah.
Since he already has one, he just wants the box anyway.
Yeah, right.
No, he wants another one, trust me. Go ahead.
Well, always drink your whiskey neat, buy more books. And Steve, what does artificial intelligence have to say about Christmas?
So now, John, I have broken AI this week. I'll just, and this will be brief. I tried with a prompt asking AI to produce a satire in the style of first Woody Allen, then Robin Williams, and Jerry Seinfeld, and it struck out all 3 times. I mean, the products were horrible and completely lame, but I will give you the very best of the, relatively speaking, was Jerry Seinfeld, and here's what it came up with. And you know Jerry Seinfeld, or you know his style, right? What's the deal with the Clean Air Act? I mean air. You don't even see it. It's just there. And suddenly in the 1970s, the government goes, hey, we've been looking into this air thing. Turns out it's disgusting. But I have to say the products of all those prompts were really pathetic. And so we broke it with you're right about the Clean Air Act this week, John. It really does kill everything. So including AI humor.
I knew you were going to mention it somehow this episode. That's
problem. You know, we've got listeners that say more Clean Air. Okay. Anyway.
Okay, wait. I almost forgot. I almost messed up big time on this. And this is actually an old one. I had to go searching. Seeking better counsel, because we know that John has on more than one occasion made fun of the lawyer's stable that President Trump keeps. Seeking better counsel, Trump hires Sydney Sweeney as new lawyer.
Oh, I was waiting because I thought Steve had forgotten to mention her all episode.
But I saved the day for you, Steve.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas, everybody. We'll be back this weekend at some point, right? Okay. And now